This is a call not for SafeCoin sales. Well, okay, well, it's going to be on the network, but how is it that Maidsafe, the company, is worth it as an investment as opposed to charity? Because, I mean, I look at it as like, I don't care if you can make I'll give you all the money I have to get it going. But that's just me. I'm that way about what we're doing. But we're looking to investors here. And SafeCoin, okay, you're going to earn a good percentage of 5% of all the SafeCoin that is now generated should actually be a lot. I actually hadn't appreciated how that is going to be, but every 20th SafeCoin generated by the network, on average, is going to go to the core developers, which is going to. I know what that. I'm sorry. Let me finish this because I just remembered what I was thinking about. Because you're talking about governance and organization, we've not mentioned the Maidsafe Foundation, and I think that really should factor in relationship to this. So
so the Maidsafe Foundation, there's sometimes a lot of confusion, and people think that. So the Maidsafe Foundation is a separate legal entity from Maidsafe, the company. So it is a Scottish charity, and I think this sometimes is, and we talk about investors and we talked about Back to the Future, which is the funding campaign we have on right now. I think, and dealing with investors like separately, so that's shareholders we have locally here or even venture capitalists that we've spoken to in the past and still speak to, is that as soon as you mention a charity, they you see their hair curl and they kind of grimace away from you.
Well, that's that's why I figured we needed to bring it up, because it figures into governance, but also the whole impression that this is a very altruistic. I mean, I'm excited about this because of what it means, not just for me personally and definitely not financially, but because it changes so much.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's money here too. So
it is, but so the foundation is basically David took his shares and he basically gave them away, and he created, or he didn't give, but what he did do was create this foundation with the money. He did some other things, included a trust for employees as well, but he created this foundation which owns, I think it's about 42% of the company. But from an investor perspective, all that is just another investor. Right. So that could be Charles Bronson, it could be Donald Trump, it could be the Maidsafe Foundation. From an investor standpoint, it doesn't really affect them, and it's not Maidsafe are going to start giving, showering kids on the streets with money is what their investment's going to go towards. So that charity takes its apportioned share of the returns. So it takes its 41 or its 42%. And if someone were to come in today and have 1% of the company, they would take their 1%. So people shouldn't be scared of the charity. It's David's thing that he set up because we were utterly frustrated with the ability for businesses and individuals to get support for innovation. And It was really designed for that reason. And to get that thing up and running was no small thing to do. I think, it was just finishing. I was joining the company. I think David said it took 18 months to try and set up, such as the charities regulation in the UK. So it's very much a serious thing, but it's not something that people should be scared about. And it's very separate from Maidsafe. So Maidsafe is a for-profit company, and the foundation is a separate legal entity run by a board of trustees.
Now, does that factor in any way into the governance of? I understood in terms of governance regarding the actions taken toward the Safe Network too, right?
Well, what it does do, the foundation, it owns the IP. So we talk about the patents and things that Maidsafe own, or Maidsafe did own, or Maidsafe created, or David created, and they are basically now owned by the foundation. And the foundation licenses these patents out to Maidsafe, the company. So there is governance there that, if David and I and Viv all lost our heads tomorrow, and probably some would argue that that's the case today. But I mean, if we all kind of went bonkers tomorrow, there's nothing that we could do to abuse these patents. They're controlled and owned by a separate legal entity, which I think is an important point.
And that's governed by separate people.
Yeah, it's a separate board of trustees that are based here in Troon. So it's totally separate legal entity, and they have their own articles of association, and they must adhere to. So they can't run amok either.
Right.
It's all very, very carefully regulated in the UK. So yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the reputation of Scottish Charities being kept to task is pretty severe. So that's good. Okay, well that's cool. So let's talk about Maidsafe, the company, which we've got a pitch here to invest in equity in the company as opposed to Maidsafe coin, which that was an easy grab. Oh, give me some, But
yeah.
Well, what does it mean to have So we're talking about, especially early on, Maidsafe as a company is going to be getting the bulk of the developer rewards in SafeCoin and conversion. What other opportunities does this company have to be profitable?
Yeah, so we have SafeCoin for a few things. So we have SafeCoin set aside for core developers. We have SafeCoin set aside for application developers.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So we have 10% so 4.3 billion coins can exist at any one time. So it's not to say there's only 4.3 billion that can exist at all, but concurrently. So 10% of these have been set aside for application developers, and we will compete with those guys as well and create our own applications. And
Maidsafe should be really good at it when you get freed up to be able to put your attention on it.
I would certainly hope so.
Hope so. Well, that's a good reason for developers now to get going while Maidsafe is distracted with putting the network there.
Exactly. So, but we've created a lot of the APIs, and they'll be refined with feedback from developers. But we're extremely well positioned to take advantage of those as well. And I think as well we also have farming. So as we all know that people provide resource to the network that they're paid in return, it's very much within our interest that in the early days that we want to make sure the experience of the Safe network, browsing the Safe network, using the applications is as fast as possible. It performs well. And the way that will happen is providing a very well-resourced network. So what Maidsafe will also do is we will provide a lot of resource to the network. And in compensation for providing that resource, we will earn safe coins as farmers. So that's a third revenue model there. And the fourth one is licensing, which we don't really know how that one's going to go. So Maidsafe is dual licensed. Now the Safe network is dual licensed at the moment, which means that if you were an application developer and you wanted to use the network, but let's say you wanted to keep your application closed source. So you didn't want to give away all your secrets and you didn't want anyone else to be able to clone your application and just put it on the network. You would need, and so if you're not using our GPL version 3 license, you would then need to use a commercial license. And so anyone doing that would pay 1% of the revenue they earn from that application to Maidsafe. And that revenue will come as fiat revenue as opposed to all being about the coins.
Right.
So from an investor standpoint, hopefully they would see that as we're not completely reliant on the coin. It's very hard to predict how the license revenue will be, how many people will fall into that category. Because, attitudes are changing as well. If you look on the existing, what we call the ClearNet and the existing internet, there's still quite a lot of proprietary software out there, but we're starting to see that change. People are more happy with open source, and we're not all the way there yet. So I still think there's a decent market for it, but I think attitudes there are changing as well. But hopefully from an investor standpoint, they will see multiple revenue sources in multiple currencies as well. So hopefully we're putting our eggs in a number of baskets there.
Oh, well, that was not something that I never could quite get it on the licensing, but as far as the application developer licensing, I go, I see.
Yeah, no. So the great thing about it is if you're an open source license, it has this thing called copyleft. So it means that if you're using that piece of code, your derivative works must also have that license attached.
Right.
So if you're using the GPL license and you opt for that one, your derivative work or your app, for example, in this case, must have that same license. But in doing so, that then means you must publish all your source code and all the rest of it. And as we know, there are a number of companies that don't want to do that. So I think, the customers that we pick up there are likely to be kind of large and medium sized enterprises, I think, are going to be opting for those types of licenses.
Then that brings us into another area which I hadn't really looked at, but of course, as the network gets established, which I'm quite certain it will, if anybody who wants to investigate closely, I think they'll come to the same conclusion. And you mentioned it in passing that, hey, instead of an application being hosted on Amazon Web Services, they may just go for the Safe Network. Amazon Web Services and some of these other guys may go, why don't we just throw our some of our resources into farming for the Safe Network and then use that resource that we're developing there. That'll buttress up the network and give us an income stream from the farming, really make the network snappy, but without shutting everybody else out, because local farmers will still have an opportunity to participate. But then they'll go, okay, when we want to then host some closed-sourced operations on the Safe Network, that could be, I don't know exactly how that'll work, but just letting that start to turn around in my head gives me like, oh, that could be, when Google starts coming to you saying, we can't seem to shut you down, so we're gonna participate.
Another interesting thought, John, would be to kind of, you're exactly right. I mean, another interesting point would be, imagine you had a large company and let's say they had a kind of storage solution. And sometimes I think, I'm pretty sure that with a lot of users, and Bitcoin has found this, that having this cryptocurrency, the token, is a barrier. It's another thing you need to learn. What's this token all about? How do I earn it? What does it mean? Is it like PayPal? And so you need to overcome that. So what you will probably find is large companies with a lot of users right now may well choose to hide the fact that you need a coin on the Safe Network from their users. So what you might find is large companies, and let's call them Dropbox, because that's what I'm thinking about in my head.
They'll farm the coin and give the service away for free.
That's right. Well, what they could actually do is they could rewrite the client and effectively hide that. So their users will still pay them in a fiat currency for the service, but they have this different tier of service, and they basically preload wallets. Safecoin wallets for those users. So those users don't even need to know what Safecoin is or worry about it. All they know is there's a different tier of Amazon service, and great, it's cheaper than the existing one. And so those users pay Amazon fiat currency on a subscription as they do today, and Amazon make money from those, but also they can collect all the Safecoins farmed by their users.
And that's really pretty straightforward, because a lot of people will be happy to just go, okay, well, they take care of my stuff. It's reasonable. They got good tech support. I don't have to worry about it. So we're just building in wow, I'm even getting a better view of this than I've had any time before in terms of the pervasiveness of the change in infrastructure this is going to be, because, and I urge any listeners who really don't have the vision to dig in and find out what underlies the privacy, security, and freedom bare metal approach of what the Safe Network is all about. Again, I've got to say, go see the Snowden movie. It's amazing.
Are you on commission for that movie, John?
No, I'm just a fan. You're not paying me either, and I'm a fan. So. But it juxtaposes very well with what we're looking at. If an internet experience, a connectivity with anybody anywhere in the world without the insecurity, the lack of privacy, and the snooping, the financial burden, all of these different things, and the social control, all of these things, if you change the paradigm upon which that operates, you've changed the world. And I think this is going to be irresistible. So that's part of why I'm enthusiastic. I'm really glad, because I'm actually having realizations as we talk. I'd never really examined what the big companies are going to do in relationship to this. So that I'm sorry. You go ahead. You're the.
No, it was okay. And I was just going to say, Joel, that you were asking earlier on about kind of investors, and I think that. I mean, the other thing that what we're building, if you look at any other service that's offered or infrastructure service, they've always got these massive rollout costs. The infrastructure today to host, I think Google's thought to have, or certainly a year or two ago, had something like 8,000 petabytes of data. And they had something like 12 data centers worldwide, each when they were built costing about $1 billion. Wow. And so that's a huge cost. And when they're building the data centers, they need to build it close to where they think their users are going to be. So they need to kind of know where these users are going to magically appear from. It needs to be close to a cooling source like water. So there's all this planning, and they have to go through all the various regulations in these countries. And then if you take that to the Safe Network model, which is, it basically springs up as people just download this software. It's extremely scalable. So if lots of people want it, they just download the software and it increases. And if people, for whatever reason, don't like it, then they uninstall it and it kind of comes back down again. And so from an investor point of view, what you have is an extremely efficient and scalable network, and as a result, company. So we have extremely low costs here. We basically just have our staff costs. We don't have these huge infrastructure costs that these other companies have to bear. And so from a developer's perspective, if you're looking at bottom line, we should be able, there's no guarantees here, but we should be able to do it much better because our overheads are so low, because the network is provided by the users and they're compensated for providing it. So hopefully they don't feel that they're getting a bum deal either.
And those users can be anybody, including big companies that have lots of data centers sitting around, say, well, and I remember discussing this on the forum where people are going, oh, well, what if data centers start flooding the network with resources? I say, well, cheers, then the network is going to be so much better.
Yeah.
So much faster. Amazing.
Yeah. And some of the interesting things, some of the things that we're exploring at the site, John, as well, is that if you think about what's running right now in the alpha, and even back to what was the client test, so that's a network, and as we know, it runs inside a data center. But if you think, what do data centers want? They want, like, if their hard drives fall over, they back up data and stuff like that. They need to manage that. So they need to manage the hardware. They need the people to manage that, and they need to do all the backups and stuff. But we actually have a product running right now, which is a perfect data center product, ironically. And so if you go to, and so one of our strategies is to go to, what we would call infrastructure as a service, so hosting providers.
Right.
And you take basically what is the alpha network running inside a data center, and you can apply a whitelist so they can make sure that the data stays within known nodes, i.e. within the data center. And they have now a network that will perform well, particularly under low churn, which we know that the alpha network does. And if a drive fails, it relocates the data within that data center to other drives. The backup's all managed as well. So if you think, we're going to be, years and years, we have these products running today.
Oh my goodness! I just realized what you're talking about. You can have a server farm that's there, or a data storage thing, and say, okay, well, you set up your local instance of the Safe network that's walled off from the rest of the Safe network.
With a whitelist, exactly.
And this is the perfect way to store your data, secure it, and back it up without having to go, oops, hardware fails. You go, okay, there's hardware failed. And go swap it out, install the program, and then it takes its part back in part of the network without any further fuss.
Exactly. And you might even get data centers doing that. So they have that, and that would be potentially license revenue for Maidsafe, because that, that allow them to a number of efficiencies. But they also you might get these hosting companies actually, running their client data on the network itself. Because it's
because they can,
and it's extremely very, very low cost infrastructure. So
wow.
There's a number of possibilities. I think the thing is, if you look at the internet today, and I think I've seen some studies, and it's, let's say, call it a $5 trillion a year market, and we're not saying that we can make that, and we still need to make all this happen. But if we're at the forefront of that, we'd be pretty stupid if we couldn't make some money out of the thing. So. So we have, we're extremely well positioned to make this work, as a business, as well as still serving all the users and giving them the privacy and security that we know we can deliver.
Wow. Well, I knew that this had to be in the wings somewhere, but I hadn't honestly given it much thought. But I realized also that the general public probably was confused about that.
It is, and it's different. Yeah, it's difficult for us to talk about as well, because I think my fear is always that we have a kind of user base, and you see the guys in the forum just now as well, and a lot of those guys are quite altruistic and some of them I sometimes get a sense of anti-company and anti-profit. And for me, it's I'm okay with, obviously, with for-profit companies, provided they're giving me value. But you do get people out there who are very much just anti-corporate, full stop. They just they don't like it, and so I'm always kind of trying to be careful of that tension between being a profit-making company and being able to demonstrate to investors that we have something that's commercially extremely viable here. But while at the same time, it doesn't mean that we can't deliver value, privacy, security, and freedom to end users at the same time. So maybe we've kept that quiet, but that's the kind of reason I've got in my head behind it.
Well, I think people very often associate the evils of corporations with the degree to which they enable government, and government enables them to coerce others into or unlevel the field. But I think that the very structure of the SAFE network tends to level that field.
Yeah, I think so.
That's what I find exciting about it. I think people should organize and be in groups and everything, but holding guns to to each other's head saying you must do is just not the way to start a good, friendly, productive relationship.
It's not. And I think, it's fine to be profit, but it should never be profit at all costs. And I think
exactly
when you look at the way, companies are governed in the US and the UK, the director's sole responsibility is to generate profit for his shareholders in a public company. And that has a really bad effect in terms of what they will do to get that profit, because that's what they've been told legally you must deliver. But in actual fact, it shouldn't be profit at all costs. You should deliver really, really good returns for your shareholders, but at the same time, you should make sure that you stay true to what your vision is, and you shouldn't, really try and harm people in the process.
Right. Boy, that opens up things that we probably I could talk about, but or wouldn't be apropos to what we're talking about here. So that's great. Well, I think that gives I'm sure there's more to investigate on that, but that opens up the door to, granting only that the SAFE network works, which it actually already does, but not free in the wild yet.
It does, and you see quite a lot, and I see quite a lot, and there's a lot of people say, it's not, SAFE network's not been delivered. It's not delivered till it's just not truly decentralized yet. But what we still have, what people forget, is this is not a, we're not all running off one server in a data center and we've just built a kind of client or something. We have vaults running that are peer-to-peer within a data center. And the bit that we're still cracking now is the ability to identify and manage low-performing nodes. That's really
so that they don't get stuck in the maw of so that they can be allowed to participate as they're able, but not get in the way of the critical functions that they would otherwise might confuse. Yeah,
that's exactly correct.
And I can see that's a major thing to come over, and I do know that progress is being made on that. So, well, that's cool. So, wow. All right. Well, I tell you what, we're running longer than I expected, but we're now down to. I think we've made the case here. At least laid it on the table, because I realized that nobody had ever really laid out what we just talked about, and I not in a way that was very open. And I'm all bubbly because I knew it was there, but I didn't really see it. Now I'm going, oh my goodness,
Yeah, it's like I was saying. This is a big deal commercially. The internet's huge, and if we can't make some money at it, we're mostly smart people here, and if we can't make money at this, if we deliver the network with the caveat, if we deliver the network as built, if we can't make money at it, then we surely do not deserve to be here. So I think we're well placed to do that.
Well, I'm glad we've clarified that. Now we're going to talk about your Bank to the Future. Equity crowd sale, I don't know what you call it. I guess that's
it's not
it.
Crowd sale. Yeah, it's
an equity offering.
Yeah, it is. So it's an equity funding round. So it's different. I think some people have struggled to appreciate the differences between a coin and equity. Yeah. So equity is obviously shares. So you're buying a part of the company. And a coin is you're just buying a coin, which is quite different.
Right.
And so Yeah, so I mean, it's a different beast, and so the main difference is that if we kind of look at like features and benefits, someone buying a coin, for example, the good thing about a coin is it's not low risk. I don't think anything you could say in this world that we're in right now is low risk, especially when you look at things like Deutsche Bank happening. But
oh goodness.
So you have coins, but the great thing about coins is they're quite fungible. So if you buy into something and you haven't really done your due diligence on it and you decide, I don't really like that, provided there's reasonable liquidity, you can go into an exchange and just sell that coin and move into something else, or go for a beer with the money or whatever. But buying shares is different. So you're buying shares within the company, and it's different because there's kind of probably three types of major returns that an investor could maybe expect from buying shares. So within large public companies, it's quite common you hear about dividends. So the board will say, well, we're going to offer so many dividends per share, and depending on how many shares you hold, you get that, and that's given to you once a quarter or whatever the board decide. And the other two big things that you have is what they call IPOs. So initial public offerings, so that company going public. So there's been a few in recent years. We saw Facebook go public a few years ago. We saw Twitter do the same. Google did it way back in, I think it was 2004 or something like that. And those are kind of one-off events where shares are offered to the public. They'll offer a small percentage of the company, and the public will buy them, typically at way beyond what the original investors paid, and that can be a very big return.
Right.
So IPOs. And then the final thing is something like an acquisition, which is, just to kind of be clear, is a possibility, but it's certainly not something that's on our kind of necessarily immediate radar for Maidsafe. And so that would be another thing where basically an entity comes in and buys a whole lot. And so obviously each shareholder within the company would decide to sell their shares and make a lot of money that way. So having equity as opposed to a coin is quite a different beast. And I'm not going to say one's better than the other. They're just suit different use cases.
Yeah. Okay, good. And so, and now Bank to the Future has an interesting take on this. Usually, investing in such things is pretty restricted as to who can participate. Could you lay out a little bit about? I mean, anybody who's interested should go to Bank to the Future and watch the Maidsafe pitch and so forth. But let's touch on it here.
So what they've done, so Simon Dixon, the CEO, has created a mechanism, because normally what you're limited by is jurisdiction. So, for example, there's quite a big crowdfunding platform crowd equity platform in the UK called Crowdcube. But typically these things are jurisdictional because the laws around investing differ quite a lot in each country. And so what Simon's come up with a structure of creating what they call an SPV, which stands for Special Purpose Vehicle. Effectively what that is just another company. So within our investment, or in any investment in Bank to the Future, what you're investing in is you're investing into the SPV, or this new company. Let's call it Maidsafe 2. And Maidsafe 2 then invests in Maidsafe. So if we're offering 6.25% equity right now against £2 million, if that is fully subscribed, people will have the 6.25%, and that will invest itself into Maidsafe. So we would effectively, as Maidsafe, we would get one shareholder, and that's this Maidsafe 2 company, this SPV. Right. So people are investing indirectly, but they're still getting all the benefits of, if it were to IPO, if it were to be acquired, if it were to release dividends, they still get all those benefits. But what it allows them to do is to, because it's this new company, it's located offshore, so they're able to have investors, and these are qualified investors, so you must go on and self-certify yourself and answer some questions on the site to become a qualified investor. So this is absolutely not crowdfunding. So this is not like Kickstarter where you can, or Indiegogo where you
throw some money.
You can't. Yeah, you must certify yourself. The platform must approve you, and then at that point, once you've been cleared, you can invest.
But the bars for certification are not so steep as in the the usual certification realm where you've got to show this and that and the other, and your underwear size and all that.
I think they just go for underwear color, not size.
Okay, well, that's good.
So, yeah, I think definitely kind of refer any of your listeners to Bank to the Future and just really go through that process yourself, and that you can. But it's not laborious at all.
Cool. So 6.5% of Maidsafe, the company, is at offer, and the details there. Now, there's some more to cover on this because because of whatever the Bank to the Future and Maidsafe looked and said, well, this isn't taking off like we wanted. So you actually came up with some perks, right? So let's talk about the perks for people to invest sooner rather than later. Yeah, if they find it appropriate. We're not giving investors, not saying you should do this. We put all the proper disclaimers. We're not saying you should do this, but this is an opportunity for those to whom it makes sense.
Yeah, so exactly right. This is absolutely not investment advice, just really information. So if sorry, John, can you see a question again? I got myself time.
Well, the perks. When it wasn't really moving, you guys get, well, we got to poke this cow, somehow.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, it hasn't. We're trying to let the investment stand on its own 2 feet, and it's, as you rightly say, it's underwhelming at the moment. Is where we are. So, I think when I came on air, it was about £275,000 towards a 2 million goal and a 1 million minimum. So, we have got some ground to go. So, we're trying to introduce things to make this work for everyone. So one of the incentives we came up with, we were nervous about offering Maidsafe coin as an incentive for concerns maybe about Forex trading, and we didn't want this to be about Maidsafe coin and just giving away coins like that. So we're trying to give an incentive away that it was a bit different, and so what we've come up with is giving away safe coins. So as we know, safe coins do not exist yet, but what the incentive that we have offered is for every £2 invested, and this offer ends tonight at 12. You would receive one safe coin when they are launched on the network, and it's kind of they tier back the way. I think it's if you invest for the next 4 days after today, you would get I think it's £5 for every £5 you invest against a £1,000 minimum. You would receive one safe coin. And so on. And so these safe coin, if you look at Maidsafe coin as a proxy token, they're worth about 6.5p today, or about 8 cents. But we'll see what the market does. There would be certainly reason to be optimistic that they will increase, but there's certainly no guarantee that they do so. So this is a kind of neat memento of having safe coins. So not only does it have a monetary value, and so value that people can extract from that and maybe use for services in the network. But the other thing is how we deliver it to people. So we put in this on a kind of like a uniquely branded USB. And for some, I've seen some comments that are kind of not very, they clearly didn't like the idea. I saw one guy compare it to Maidsafe giving away steak knives, which made me laugh a little bit. But I suppose you need to have a sense of humour about these things. But for other people who followed us closely and maybe do get that this could be a really pretty big thing, I was saying to someone the other day, imagine that Google had offered something like this. Imagine when the first search engine came out. Imagine you would have something like that Google did back in 1999 when they first started to come out with their search algorithms. Something like that today would be pretty phenomenal to have, and to be able to say you supported something like that and all that it stands for. So that's an incentive that we're offering.
Now the SafeCoin keys to the SafeCoin are going to be on those, or is it just a storage drive?
It's just a storage drive. But
it's a limited edition. Nobody else is going to get them.
Okay. It is, and the safe coins will be on there. But also we can do digital transfer as well. But it's just something to have.
Well, cool. I got it.
It's a bit different.
And then Bank to the Future is also adding something.
They do. So they provide. I think they've done this in the past for others. So there's they basically provide kind of a cloud mining service. So my understanding is that they basically rent these servers in Iceland that mine in the Bitcoin network. And sorry, just get rid of my phone there.
No problem.
And so they rent those effectively on behalf of users and pay those returns to users as a bonus as well. And so I don't.
They run cloud mining as part of their operation. So they just donate a certain amount of that to users, and any Bitcoin that is generated from that.
I think it gets paid. Yeah, it gets paid to on a daily basis. So.
Good. Okay.
So some incentives for people. Maybe we'll move to Stake Nice next week if
if need be. But anyway, and these are on diminishing scales, both each of the offerings. Okay, well we'll start wrapping it up here. But that is important to say that it's structured so that you get more the sooner you act, if you're going to act. So it's just it's a little poke to get with it if you are interested.
It is, and just to keep things absolutely clear as well, what we're not saying here is that Maidsafe are offering guaranteed returns on this investment, and that everyone should do, regardless of what you're investing in, should do absolute due diligence. Nothing is guaranteed, and what we're promoting here is, like any technology startup, it's high risk investing. So do not invest if you can't afford to lose it.
Good. Well, that's appropriate, even though obligatory. And that's something we would want to say, even if we didn't have to. Well, All right, Nick, is there anything else you'd like to cover before we sign off here?
No, not at all. Just to really appreciate your time, John, as ever. Really been a great supporter of the network, and enjoyed chatting, and thanks for having me on.
Well, great. Well, I am a supporter of the network, but I really learned some things in the process of putting this together, and even just right now in the last time we've been talking. So I thank you very much.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks, John. Take it easy.
All right, you too.